It would be valuable for the audience to know, what you were doing before you were teaching people how to add high value procedures to their insurance-based practices.
Sure. I started my career. I went to University of Florida and did dental school there. And then I came to University of Miami, did my residency at University of Miami. And then I joined the faculty. So I was on the faculty for pretty much a full career. And my focus became dental implants and bone grafting. And that's what I did, invented a lot of procedures, discovered PRP is credited with being the founders of it. A lot of surgical procedures, et cetera, we developed. And I would go around the country, around the world, teaching those procedures, writing books and articles about those, as well as seeing patients for those procedures.
Welcome to the Power Hour. I'm Eugene Schatzman, and what a show today. Just wow. So today I sat down with serial entrepreneur Dr. Arun Garg. Dr. Garg is a dentist, and he owns 41 different companies that he's built over the last 20 years. He still practices, and he has 7 offices that focus on dental implants. And he owns a school called Implant Seminars where he trains other dentists to do implants and other high-value procedures. The incredible thing is that Dr. Garg has trained over 20,000 dentists to add high-dollar specialties to their practice. And we get to learn from that success in this episode. There is so much to unpack. At some point, Dr. Garg humbly tells the story of going from working in academia, making $42,000 to becoming an entrepreneur, making 50 times as much in the next few years. But more than anything, I just love his mindset. Every company he owns, he created with the unique mindset of serving his client or patient to the fullest extent possible. And he definitely goes into this mindset during the show. So there's a lot for us to translate into our day-to-day in optometry here. Specifically, we spend a lot of time diving into the kinds of things that Dr. Garg teaches to his students who add $5,000 or more cash procedures to busy insurance-focused practices. And we talk about the sales mentality it takes to transition to cash procedures. We talk about mindset. Again, we talk about the patient experience and coming in with like unique solutions for patients. And again, there's just so many lessons for us by looking at Dr. Garg's success as a pillar in this adjacent industry. Anyway, this is definitely an episode I want your feedback on. It was not easy for me to get Dr. Garg to carve out some time to be a benefactor for us in our industry. So please reach out to me. Let me know if you think whether this conversation has helped you. You can reach me at the Power Hour website or at eugeneschatzman.com. Also, again, just to make sure you get reminders and notifications as we release future conversations like this one, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you prefer to listen and watch podcasts. And now, let's go into today's show. All right, Dr. Garg, welcome to the show. So excited to have you on the Power Hour.
Hey, thank you.
And, you have such an incredible journey. You're a serial entrepreneur, and we're going to get into some of this journey in just a few minutes. But I think it would be valuable for the audience to know, what you were doing before you were teaching people how to add high value procedures to their insurance-based practices.
Sure. I started my career. I went to University of Florida and did dental school there. And then I came to University of Miami, did my residency at University of Miami. And then I joined the faculty. So I was on the faculty for pretty much a full career. And my focus became dental implants and bone grafting. And that's what I did, invented a lot of procedures, discovered PRP is credited with being the founders of it. A lot of surgical procedures, et cetera, we developed. And I would go around the country, around the world, teaching those procedures, writing books and articles about those, as well as seeing patients for those procedures.
So you were seeing patients in the clinic at the university.
Absolutely.
Got it. And then at some point, you decided to break off and start your own practice and also your own training business. Talk a little bit about that.
I did. I always wanted to be cutting edge. That's just kind of what excites me, to do new and novel things. And for that whole career at the university, companies, when they had new products, new ideas, they would approach universities first and give us access is first to them. When financial crunches came, companies no longer approached universities, and they would go out in the market and sell things, and we had less access. I wasn't able to do cutting edge as well at the university as I could in private practice. And that's when I decided to leave the university so I could have the revenue coming in from private practice to be able to do new novel procedures, new novel devices, and is equipment and supplies. And so the two things I did at the university, seeing patients, I did the same thing. I started from scratch, a scratch practice. and took a loan for it because the university salary was so poor. I had no savings. And then I started a seminar business because I was teaching at the university. And that was very little loan because there wasn't much overhead, with just a computer and a screen. And so I launched both of them simultaneously. And I spent about 50% of effort in each one.
Okay, so we're going to go to the training business in a second, but in optometry we call them cold starts, right? So you guys use cold start, and the interesting thing about your cold start is that if I understand correctly, you didn't take a lick of insurance, right? You weren't on any of the plans. You decided that you were going to start a cold start practice that was just doing elective procedures in the dentistry space.
I did, and I'm not sure if that was some great grand plan or simply by default, because at the university is everything was handled. I didn't really do insurance. I had either super wealthy patients that wanted these subspecialized procedures that I did, bone grafting and implants, and the handlers would bring them to us as being the authorities, or indigents because they got things at no cost. And so that's kind of where it was. So we didn't think about payment or insurance, et cetera. I also didn't think about HR. Oftentimes in institutions, the hiring is sort of anyone with a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what the hiring was. So I left for private practice. The only way I knew was hiring people with a pulse. I don't do that now, but at that time I did.
Uh-huh.
And is they didn't know how to do insurance, and I didn't know how to do insurance. It was really by default.
All right. Well, but you start this and just to give people an understanding, I mean, what does an elective procedure in dentistry cost? Or what are some examples of the elective procedures that your practice now does?
Well, the insurance procedures, things like crowns and fillings and exams and x-rays and et cetera. Elective procedures are usually things like bleaching, veneers, dental implants. My focus, of course, is dental implants and bone grafts. So for a tooth, the implant, the crown, the abutment done is about $5,000. If someone has no teeth, the full arch is about $25,000. So the
So,
procedures we do about $5,000 to $25,000 is
okay.
depending on the patient.
So, and this is completely elective. People have to, either finance it or pay just cash out of pocket, put it on a credit card or whatever.
Yes. And those are some of the things maybe we should talk about today.
Well, yeah, for sure. I think that's how we teach people to ask for, and how you teach people to ask for those kinds of to ask patients for those kinds of funds is really interesting. Now, when you first started your practice, though, just coming back to this, what are some of the things that you learned? Because obviously, it's not like you open the door and a patient walks in the door and says, "Okay, Dr. Garg, here's $25,000. Good luck." So in your kind of early experience, when you opened an elective only practice doing high-end procedures, what were some of the things that you learned in terms of patient acquisition and even sales and those types of things?
The first 4 months I got lucky because I had been here. I'd been at the university, I'd built the reputation, and I had friends that didn't want to be seen at a university location, at a hospital. So they were waiting for me, already people that knew me, already had rapport with them. So getting them in, I didn't need marketing. Closing them, I didn't need to have any effort. We did phenomenal the first 4 months, and then it crashed because
Mm,
I ran out all these people that knew me and already had rapport with. And then it became a cold start. Is I had to figure out marketing. Then I had to figure out how to actually communicate and build rapport, because now is a cold start, and now is folks that and I walk in the room, and my methodology was what I was doing at the university. I would walk, nod to the patient, go look at the x-ray, because in my mind at that time, I was treating x-rays, not human beings. Look at the x-ray, tell them that, yeah, you need bone here. I can do it about 20-minute procedure. I take it out of the tibia beneath the knee joint right in the office. We don't go to the operating room. We don't use general anesthesia. It's about $8,000. I put in some implants, da da da. I'd walk out 3-minute consults like that. And
mhm.
they would turn to the assistant and say, who was that guy? Is there was no rapport, because at the university, the famous people, the handlers had already done their homework and they knew
Uh-huh.
they were coming in to see me. And as long as I didn't walk in like looking like Quasimodo or something, they were pre-sold. But in private practice, it's not like that.
Right.
It's not
So
human
it's
beings.
about building credibility, building
Yeah,
trust,
yeah.
and so obviously the
And I had
patient
to learn that.
experience.
And I was the worst. I mean, in my profession or any healthcare profession, I was probably the worst in the country at it. And if I can learn it, anyone can learn this. I
Well,
mean,
you're very. I mean, I think you're very humble in the sense that you've trained 20,000 professionals how to do this well at this point. But early lessons for you. What happened to have you start focusing on both the patient experience, and then obviously you had to go find those patients somewhere. I imagine you started building referral relationships with other providers. Is that what happened?
I did is I started getting referral relationships that lasted about 6 months or a year. Is as we then began to grow again, is the referrals sort of began to dry up as we were seeing more as a competition, as a threat. So then we started marketing.
Hmm.
And then I took seminars and I was giving seminars on clinical. I was training folks on how to do the surgery of dental implants, how to do the bone grafting, and on my off time, I was taking seminars on communication skills. I was taking seminars on
Mm,
how to talk to them effectively, is and get case acceptance is for them.
got it.
And so is it became very different. And a lot of the folks, these 20,000 folks that I've trained over these years, I give them one weekend a month for 6 months is and that's our core program.
Hmm.
And I train them on the surgery, but on the last session, I tell them that if you can't sell it, you can't do it because it
Right.
doesn't matter how good you are technically. And I can train you very, very well technically, but if you can't get a case acceptance, it's all mute. And what happens is you feel the most comfortable the day after you graduate. And a week later, you forget some. A month later, more, 6 months later, forget it. You can't do it. And if you
Hmm.
can't get a case acceptance for 6 months, you're not going to want to do it. You need
Yep.
case acceptance immediately when you feel comfortable with this.
So in the optometry space, we have, I'd probably liken this a little bit to some of our elective, and I'd say cash pay services like dry eye, like myopia management, maybe scleral lenses, maybe aesthetics. And I think, when you talk about case acceptance, we talk about capture rate, same thing. The reality is that I think everyone struggles with this because you're seeing a patient who, may walk in with an expectation that they have some sort of insurance benefits. And then those insurance benefits turn into, okay, now I'm asking you for, in your case, thousands of dollars. So you're teaching doctors to do this all the time, right? In your practice, you don't take insurance, but probably your students on a regular basis,
All of
they're
it.
seeing the cavities, the fillings, the cleanings, whatever, which probably means that, the patient's walking in and they're saying, I have this insurance benefit that I paid for. I'm expecting to walk out of here, and like the office probably has to argue for a $20 copay. And now you're asking for, $20,000. So when you're dealing with students, how do you make your students successful in order to get them comfortable with this concept of, selling higher value procedures?
So the very first thing, and we could talk at length about this, but just briefly overall, it's our own mindset. Okay. How do we perceive this? Do we perceive it? An analogy would be, you're sleeping on the sofa, the windows are open, some guy, sales guy, comes and knocks on the door. He can see you're sleeping on the sofa and he wakes you up and he's trying to sell you some pots and pans. And you get up and you think, what a jerk. You're sleeping on the sofa, another guy comes and knocks on the door and he tells you, your backyard's on fire. You're like, what a savior, right? The action is the same, the knocking on the door, but in the first scenario, he's looking out for himself to sell the pots and pans and get his commission.
Hmm.
In the second scenario, he's looking out for me and saving me from the backyard on fire.
I
So
love
part of
that.
it is my own mindset, our mindset. If the mindset is I am helping you, then it's much easier for me to talk to them about it. I am not trying to sell it for me. I'm doing this for you. If you have this eye problem, I want to help you with it. If I can help your child with this eye problem, imagine how his entire life will be different. If that's my belief system, that I'm taking this child and changing their experience in elementary school and middle school and high school and whether they get invited to prom or don't get invited to prom and change how they feel about themselves, right? And I can change their entire life trajectory by
Hmm.
doing this, right? If that's my belief system, I will come across completely different than if my belief system is I'd like to get a couple of $1,000 in my bank account.
Right.
Right? So number one is we, and when you say we, and the entire team has to be on board with this. Okay,
Hmm.
that's what this is about. If along the way I get a little bit of cheese out of it, okay, that's fine. But we're doing this to change that child's life experience, right?
Hmm.
Is if we can take care of the dry eye, and now is maybe it decreases the chance of corneal transplants later. Maybe it decreases the chance of blurry vision later. Maybe it decreases the chance of having car accidents in dusk or at nighttime. And I don't know, but you would know. And if it decreases those things, and that's my belief system, then it is my obligation to let the patient know those things. It is not the patient's obligation to read my mind and know that your treatment can do this. It is
Hmm.
my obligation, if I'm the educated one, to say this treatment will decrease his, blurry vision at dusk. It will increase your ability to drive. It will increase how long you can hold off corneal transplants or whatever the procedures may be. I don't expect them to read our mind. We're the ones that educated in this. It's our obligation to pass on education to them.
Well, and
It
it's
is their
really,
obligation to make the decision.
yeah, and
Okay.
it's super interesting to me as you're talking how much emphasis you're putting on the patient benefit.
Yes.
You're not talking about the technical nature of the procedure necessarily as you're saying this, but you're talking about the benefit the patient is experiencing. And you're almost saying you have this moral responsibility. I know we're both big fans of Jay Abraham, and he's
Right.
been on the show in the past. The idea of the strategy of preeminence, we have this moral obligation to educate our consumer that this is in fact the best thing for them, and we'd only do that if we believe it, right?
Yes.
And we really have to believe that this is, it's better to spend the money to get the outcome, and it's not really an elective. It's really in line with what your best case outcome is going to look like as a patient. And you teach this. Do you teach people to go to from 0 to 25,000 right away, or is there like a stair step thing that you do?
It has to be a stair step thing, because if you're used to $20 copays and now you want to talk about 20,000, you're going to choke on the words. And so the very first session I tell them is dentists extract about, on average, about 200 teeth a year. And so I
That's
said,
an average dentist doing insurance extractions.
exactly. So about 200 is teeth a year. It's about $150 an extraction. It takes them about 20 minutes. And the studies show that when you pull that tooth out, right, there's a hole left in the bone. The body will dissolve the bone around there, use it or lose it. It feels like there's no purpose for it. And the body will dissolve the jawbone in that area by 40% within the next couple of years. We can stop the bone loss through a process called socket preservation. We put some material in there. Your own bone cells around it grow into it and have baby and grandbaby bone cells. That material dissolves away, and now we stop the bone loss. There's still 1% a year bone loss just due to aging, but you stop the initial 40% bone loss. Ms. Jones, that's called socket preservation. That's $395. Is that something we want to do today? And that's it.
And I noticed that you
5% will say
positioned it. You
yes,
positioned it as preservation,
yes,
right? You're in the patient's from the perspective of the patient, right?
because words matter. As a kid in high school, I worked at McDonald's, and I'm in the back there. I'm like, hey, I need some more grease for the fries. They go, no, 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 no. We call it shortening. It might have been grease, but they call it shortening. I need another rag to clean the grill with. No, no, no. We call it a towel. And I realized in my teenage years, these multi-billion-dollar companies who have done the research know that words matter, because the client is out there listening to words like shortening versus grease, towel versus is rag. And so words matter. Nobody wants to be grafted. Everybody wants to be preserved.
Hmm.
And so it's very critical. And a lot of times doctors, what they'll do is they'll say, well, I'm doing bone grafts because they want to be macho about it. I'm like, well, that may be fine for you to talk to others in the profession. With patients, you say socket preservation. And probably you want to be consistent and saying the same word with everyone, even with colleagues. It's
Hmm.
socket preservation, because otherwise, when we try to do different words, we get confused about it.
Okay, so going back to your example, 200 teeth a year, before people hear you talk about this, what percentage of them are doing this socket preservation procedure?
Almost none. Almost none.
Okay. After they hear you talk about this, what percentage you called it compliance, or what percentage of capture rate do you get from?
Well, almost all the doctors in the class are doing it, but is I tell them that you will have 90 to 95% case acceptance. And they don't believe it when I tell them, because they Their belief system is patients don't want to pay. They don't want to pay $395. They're not going to. They're going to say no, blah, 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 blah. They're going to ask me questions what the material is. They're going to ask me this. They're going to ask me that. It's going to turn out is they themselves don't believe it. It needs 3 or 4 or 5, and that's why I script it for them. 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 successful cases. Next month, the second session, I go around the room and I ask each person, how many people did you present it to? 10. How many said yes? 10. How many people did you present it to? 15. How many said yes? 14. And we go around so everyone sees that, wow, everyone in the room had 90 to 95% case acceptances. And there's always a couple of outliers that don't have that. But now they see, okay, I'm the outlier, not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
What's holding me back? And I ask them, did you use the exact script I gave you? No. Maybe that's the issue. Did you believe in it? No. Okay, I thought it just to make an extra 395. That's the problem. So I go through this is with them. And the reality is the procedure takes literally 2 minutes. So you take a 20-minute extraction, tooth extraction, it's $150. You add 2 minutes to it, and that's $150 plus $395.
Right. And that's a found. And if I'm doing my math right, that's $80,000 a year for the average dentist, right? $400 times 200 times 200
It is
procedures.
not a get rich quick scheme by any means. But I joke with them that the payments for this course tuition, the course is $8,000. Okay. The payments, the monthly payments you make for the course tuition should not come out of your fillings, not come out of the money you already make, and should come out of this. A portion for the tuition, a portion in your pocket, a portion for Uncle Sam, like everything else is. And then that's during the course. And then you're making this $80,000 the rest of your life. 10 years later, $800,000, 20 years later, $1.6 million of socket preservation and stopping the bone loss.
Right.
For hundreds and thousands of patients.
Helping the patients
yes.
And believing in it and, following a process to present it in a way that where words matter. So far, I'm just summarizing some of the things that you're teaching.
And at the second session, I tell them that if you can't get case acceptance for $395, then how are you ever going to get case acceptance for $5,000?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, the other final thing, this is training wheels to be able to talk about money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Something that's traditionally not been done in your practices.
So do you advise that the doctors talk about money, or do you advise that, because I know most doctors I know tend to save it for the, save it for the, we'll call it the patient counselor or the optician or whoever, the tech who's going to come in and say, well, the doctor recommends this and this is how much it's going to cost. Do you teach doctors to talk about the case value?
It's interesting when patients ask, well, how much is that? And if you're the doctor and you're supposedly smart enough to get through doctor school, okay, whatever specialty you're in, and you can't even remember a couple of fees, to me, that's disingenuous, okay? Yep. Like, you're supposedly smart enough to get through all this curriculum, and you can't remember a couple of your own fees, okay? To me, it comes across as like, I feel embarrassed about it.
Uh-huh.
We shouldn't feel embarrassed about it. We should feel comfortable. But on the other hand, it is not my role. It's not my time to do that. Okay. So very quickly, most of us can ascertain what's going to happen. Okay. And if it is something smaller, then no. Is if you're seeing whatever number of clients a day, you're seeing 18 clients a day, you don't have the time, the doctor doesn't have the time to talk to each one and go over the fees for each and every one. All right. So if it's routine and here's your script, go outside, talk to them, get some glasses made, they should not be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something big, I think doctors should be. Yeah. Because for something big and something elective, they're going to have a lot of questions. It is not just a script for some glasses out there. Okay. It is, what is this thing? Why do I have the dry eyes? What can be done about it? What are the benefits of it? And the best, most credible person in the office to discuss that is the doctor.
What's interesting, the training wheels analogy, something just hit me as you were talking. Usually the flow in a typical optometrist office is exactly what you said. I'm seeing 15 patients a day, 18 patients a day. I got to get through my exams. But it's going to be the case that some percentage of those patients qualify for a high value procedure, myopia management for a kid, or, dry eye or something like that. And usually the doctor gives a little spiel that says, I recommend that you come back for a full workup on your dry eye and that kind of thing. And maybe they'll say that's going to cost $200, or maybe they'll say it's not going to, or maybe they'll say, oh, you should do that. And then they leave it to the optician who's selling the glasses, or to the tech to explain how much that's going to cost. And then the tech says, well, did you want to come back for that $200 appointment? And no, that's $200. So to your point, the training wheels exercise that you're describing, your bone graft / bone preservation example, it's the first appointment. You just got to be able to sell the $200 first appointment, because you have to believe that that appointment is ultimately good for the patient, that getting all the information about how they could, to your point, how they can help their kids in school, how they can help their kids with athletics, how they can improve their kids' quality of life forever and ever, how that appointment will open the door for them to be able to do that. As a provider, have to believe and compel them to do that, because usually what we see is a really low capture rate to that appointment. It's sometimes the people who show up to that appointment, they're a little bit more bought in, they're a little bit more excited, and so they'll do what they need to do, and maybe they'll end up spending the money. But getting the patients to that first appointment, I usually see sub 10% capture rates when I talk to clients. And this is, I think, your example of the training wheels, of just having great script and having the doctor present it, and having the doctor essentially ask the 1-minute question, because they're already educating the patient about the issue, right? Just ask the question in a way that's way more compelling, and gets the patient to say, okay, of course I'm going to do this. This is my kid's health, or this is discomfort that I feel every day. I could alleviate that. That sounds amazing, So these are great lessons, Dr. Garg. I love this. Let's talk a little bit more about any other lessons that you teach people, and maybe from a patient experience standpoint, or if you've got more sales tips, let's go there.
I think it's is how long does that exam take?
15 minutes.
The one we're talking about.
Oh, or you're talking about the high value exam.
Right.
So the typical exam might take 15 to 30 minutes. The high value workup, there'll be text, there'll be whatever. I mean, it might be 45 minutes to an hour, depending on everything that's going on there.
Okay. And obviously I'm not telling anyone how to do this, but what I'm trying to do is, I wouldn't even make another appointment. I would do it when they're there. Okay. I would do it, say, look, if this is something you want to do, is you're already here, I'm already here, it's an extra 30 minutes. Okay. Let's go ahead and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And start working them up and then I would be the one, the doctor says, the fee for this is yada, 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 800, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, spaced out like this. This is not covered by insurance. Okay. If you have 30 minutes, is this something you want to do today? All right. And it's also kind of like a tell, right? Because, like in poker, when you watch on television, someone gets an eye twitch, it means they have a good hand or a bad hand or whatever. It's a tell. So is this something we want to do today? 30 minutes, let's go ahead and do it. You're already here, I'm already here. I'm making it very convenient for them. This is the fee. And is if they say yes, the tell is they're probably going to accept treatment. Right? In our experience. If they say, no, let me think about it, let me see, let me come back, the tell is they're probably not going to. Okay. So we're not going to do a lot of follow-up on it. So it serves as kind of a nice tell. And I'll bring it back to dentistry for a second. What happens in the office is someone comes in, they got a couple of fillings. No reason is for the dentist to describe the fillings and come up with a fee schedule. So he walks out, and the patient coordinator, she walks in, she goes to the computer, she types up everything nice. She comes in, presents a plan to him, says, $5 copay here, this, let's get you appointed. All right. If it's something large and she goes to the computer, write everything down, she's gonna be gone for a half hour. And for a large procedure, I don't think that's good customer service for her to disappear for a half hour and the clinician to disappear because he's already conducting his exam. Okay. And that's another reason I need to quote the fee.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because your point about patient experience is well taken, right? Because if you're running a busy practice where you're seeing patients over, you gotta make sure that you get your 15 patients in. There's got to be some sort of nuance that happens when, and I guess I'm curious in the dentistry space. What's the difference between a practice that's doing, and I'd call it a blended practice, because I think that we can all imagine the high end, I walk into a beautiful center with, and it's a high end procedure. And like, I know I'm going to spend $25,000 because of how nice the lobby looks, and, that how good the chandelier is in the lobby. But that's not most people's practices. Most people's practices, I'm sure most of your 20,000 students, their practice is a blended practice. They're seeing cavities, they're walking in for cleanings, whatever. How do you integrate a higher end experience, and what do you teach people about the way they should be thinking about their patient experience, in context of a higher value procedure?
It's got to be different. It can't be the exact same. Is the folks, and in this case, whether we call it insurance or we just call it, fewer procedures, is that can be quick, easy, fast, turn it over to the front desk. This higher end procedures / non-insurance has to be spending more time, has to be is rapport and getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually have developed a questionnaire, and the questionnaire is about 10 questions, not the usual thing, the medical history, et cetera, which every office has, but it's questionnaires about things like, how important is it for you to keep your teeth for a lifetime? Is things like, have you ever had negative experience in a dental office? Things like, have you ever been told you've got gum disease? Things like, how important are aesthetics to you? Is et cetera, et cetera. And it's about 10 or 15 questions, is that the coordinator goes and asks before I walk in.
Mm-hmm.
And we have whoever's the chatty one in the office. It could be the doctor, but whoever the chatty one is in the doctor enjoys that type of thing, getting to know them. They jot all this down, and now literally walking down the hallway in 30 seconds, I'm reading all of this on my way in. And now you're armed with a lot more information. Is if they say, how important is it to keep your teeth for a lifetime? Very important. My grandma had her teeth in a cup. She couldn't eat anything. She was miserable. I never want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or my grandpa had his teeth in his cup. He ate everything. He had no problem chewing nuts. He had no problem. So it's important for me to keep my teeth. But if I got to get a second job for it, it's not worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to know before I walk in that which route I start going down is to educate them on implants here, educate them on denture here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, educate them on insurance procedure, the denture, educate them non-insurance procedure here before I even walk in. Because in every other industry, if you think about it, is folks will qualify you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're going to go buy a house with a realtor. They don't just start showing you houses. They ask you what your budget is. Right? You go to buy a car. They don't just show you every car in the lot. They ask you what your budget is. And in our offices, it's not polite to ask what your budget is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have to have a very polite way to know that, which is important to you.
Yep.
Right? So in your case, the questions might be, have you ever had an experience of dry eye? All right. If you have, would it be important to you to get treatment for it if you knew a treatment was available?
Well, it's interesting on that front. Did I hear you say that that your counselors ask the questions rather than having the patient fill out the form? Because I can see a world where somebody's filling out the medical form, and I liken this, Arun, to, I went to a chiropractor not so long ago, and I had to say all the problems, but it was it was like a 4-page, like a picture of a body, and I had to put X's where my, where my shoulder hurt, and I put, and like literally I talked to no one. Right. It would have been a much better experience. It would have been a much more concierge experience if somebody, it doesn't even have to be the doctor, but if somebody put me in an exam room and said, okay, point to where it hurts, or does it hurt there? Let me poke it. Is that where it hurts? And, and have you ever had this problem? Have you ever had that problem? Here, I'm just like looking at the sheet, and I'm just, I got the line, and I'm just drawing no through all the check boxes, just drawing one line no through all the check boxes, because not even reading what it says. But you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that for that high value procedure, screener, we call them in optometry, right? We all have screeners, but for that screener, you would have a human talk to them through that screener rather than
$20 an hour
fill it
human,
out.
right? That's a warm, fuzzy person.
Yeah. And then they note down before the doctor sees them? Do they note down details, not just yes, no, but like,
No,
do they note down
because the way I have the questions, I can give you a sample of the form we use. It has a question, has lines in it for my team to write out full sentences there.
I love that.
It's not
That's a really great tip. And, I've seen a lot of screeners for dry eye and myopia, and I don't know that they necessarily that optometry reliably delivers those screeners. But even for practices that do deliver those screeners with every patient or every potential qualifying patient, very few would probably do it in an in-person type of conversation. I think
And
that's
now
a really
it's
valuable
not the
point.
doctor who's what times with $100, $200, $500, whatever it is an hour. It's a $20 an hour employee who's saying, do you have young kids? How old are the kids? And then the question would be, on the forum is, if you knew that there was treatment for XYZ, would you
Hmm.
be interested in knowing more about it?
I love that.
Have they ever complained about XYZ at school or at
Hmm.
home? If so, would you like for them to be brought in to be checked for that?
Yeah, I love that.
Right?
That's great.
Okay. Yeah.
Really, really interesting
And now
stuff.
you're walking in armed with a boatload of information.
Of course, and you have you as you said you might want to spend a little bit more time with this patient because they're seeking out that education. They said they want the help, and then you can also that helps you get your mindset right to say I'm not just trying to sell something. And this is true. I think a lot of doctors actually feel like they're trying to help the patients. But I also wonder if they have questions about whether their associates, the employee doctors, are trying to meet a sales goal or a quota, or if they or if this is a way to get them engaged and to say the patient says they want help. It's your job to help them. They're
What
really
you went
interested
to
in
school
learning
to
more.
train for. Exactly. This is
Yes.
why you went to school, to train for this, to do this, to provide this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a really, really good point. Anything else on patient experience that you'd share? Because I want to also jump into your entrepreneurial journey a little bit too.
Oh, it can be a lot of things. I mean, you and I can talk about patient experience is ad nauseum. We have got a rule that is maximum waiting room is 7 minutes. I have an odd number maximum, so it's not rounded. Is I do have cameras in all my offices in the waiting room. Is in the back, I can see the monitors, so I see when the patient comes in. I see when they're seated. Is I'm in the room at the same time or prior to them being seated because I see them walking in. They're not waiting for me, so it's not like first they waiting room, then they go to the exam room, then they wait again. I'm meeting them there. I'm at the same time.
Yeah,
Is
I think
minor
that's
things, but you save a minute here, a minute here, a minute here. They don't come back to the back and say, "Oh, the guy's seated." If they got to do that 15 times a day, oh, he's seated. Oh, he's seated. He's seated. Even if it's 1 minute delay for them to walk back and get you, that's 15 minutes. If it's 1 minute delay for them to come back and get you, 2 minute delay for you to get off of Instagram to go and see the client, that's 3 minutes times 15 patients. That's 45 minutes wasted. That's a whole hour of your life
uh-huh.
wasted. Okay. And it sets a tone for the office, a different tone. Is makes the whole office is feel like the energy we have here is more kind of calm and chill versus on point. Okay. The way we would like to be treated. You go to a restaurant, when do you want to be seated? Immediately. Okay. Not okay, yeah, we'll see in about 15, 20 minutes. We'll get you in when we can. Uh,
Hmm.
and it's not that we don't have 15 or 20 minutes is to wait at that restaurant, but everyone emotionally feels like they disrespected me.
Hmm.
They didn't disrespect you or me when they make us wait at the restaurant. They were full. But people take it personally. So the faster we get them in, the better it is for them emotionally.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you talk about just waiting as an indicator, but you're right that even having a focus on that reminds the staff that they're there for the patient experience. If you can communicate to the staff, again, get the mindset right, it's that, well, the reason we're doing this is because we want our patient to feel special, like a VIP, and that we're truly respecting them and their time. And chances are having that one control of, in your case, 7 minutes. And I don't know, I'm curious how you enforce that with your team. Like, if it's 8 minutes, do you like, you run down to the front desk and you say, guys, get off your, whatever you need to do, make it
No, I'll tell you
happen.
what I do.
Uh,
I walk out of the waiting room, grab them myself.
ah,
I don't do it. I don't do it disrespectfully to my staff. I just walk out. If I see someone out on the camera, I see them out there, and I'm not busy. I just walk out and say, "Hey, Miss Jones, come on in. Let's come on in. Come on in." Okay. And the staff are respectful enough, even though I did not do it the disrespect. I did not give them a dirty look or a glare or anything. They just feel apologetic. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, let me get. It's okay. Come on, that's fine. But then the next 1 week, that's not going to happen again
mm-hmm.
because they just know that, ooh, that was not the way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Something like that. Yes.
So it's interesting, and a really great point. So even having the team knowing that that's a rule then gets their mindset. Okay, we're here for the patient. We have the patient experience as a top of mind thing. We're not just administrative clerks, and I got to get this insurance claim filed, or I got to get this piece of paperwork sent out before I see the patient. No, patient experience first,
Yes.
then everything
Always.
else. Right.
Always number one. And
Yep.
and Ritz-Carlton training, they train you that is, if there's a hotel guest that needs something, everyone is empowered to take care of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we all have our specific job duties, but you know what? If it means me seating is the patient, fine. Okay. There's no ego about it or anything like that. It's just taking care of them.
I love that. So, I feel like we could do a part two episode on either patient experience or high value procedure conversion rates. But I also want to get the audience to get to know you a little bit more. And what's most fascinating, and you and I have a relationship that extends back a couple of years, and I've known and I've watched your journey, and I just think it's so fascinating how, and I would say this in the most complimentary way, ethically opportunistic you've been in your career. You see things that don't exist, and you just kind of create them. And I wanted you to add a little bit of color to that for the audience. I hope you know what I'm talking about when think about the fact that you're training tens of thousands of people and you see an opportunity. So talk a little bit about how you got involved with the other 39 businesses outside of your initial practice and your initial
Sure.
your initial training seminar business.
I was a full-time professor at the University of Miami. I trained residents, and I was on salary. So my salary was $42,000 a year. Now, it was a number of years ago, but even then it wasn't worth a lot. I got 3% cost of living increases a year. So I
Mm-hmm.
left there after full career almost 20 years there, and left after almost 20 years there. And when I left there, I was at about $72,000 a year. And I was the lowest paid guy in my profession in the country. And it was at a hospital. I was there about 7 or 8 in the morning. I left about 9 or 10 every night. I did that 6 days a week. And if you divide it by hourly, I never bothered to divide it by hourly, but I was probably below minimum wage. And I would joke if I was in a room full of doctors, the dental hygienists, and dental assistants. If I was in a room full of doctors, I was the lowest paid guy. If I was in a room full of doctors, dental hygienists, dental assistants, laboratory technicians, I was still the lowest paid guy in the room. I love my life. I love doing cutting edge things, which I got to do. I went into private practice, and number one, instantly is things went up because I was bringing into the university patient care about $5 or $6 million a year. I was doing big procedures, as I said, easy to close because my title closed folks. So I brought about $5 or $6 million a year, about $1 million a year of continuing education money, about $1 million a year of research grants. I brought about $6-7 million. And if you do the math, 10% of that would be about 600,000-700,000. 1% would be 60,000-70,000. I was getting essentially less than 1% of my collections.
Yes.
I went to private practice, and it was all to me. And I did the same production. My first month I collected over $500,000. Again, big procedures. And that's when people were waiting for me to come out. It wasn't when it crashed 4 months later.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn marketing. And so if you do the math on that, that's about $100,000 a week. My entire salary used to be 40,000-50,000 a year. So now I was making in a week more than what I used to make in a year. That was overhead in that 100,000, but even after paying the overhead, I was making more in a week.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, when folks talk about 10xing, I'm living proof you can 52x just by changing the setting.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it with that motive. I did it for a different motive, which was I wanted more excitement. But I did 52x my income is with that simple move by moving into private practice from the university.
Right.
And then I did the seminars. And at that time, the seminars were very small because when I was at the university, they came for the university title umbrella also, not just on my name and reputation. But eventually that began to grow, and that grew more and more and more as and as that grew, the revenues there started growing is exponentially. And our entry level program is $8,000 program. The next program is 15,000. The next program is 15,000. The next program is 15,000. So they take program one, then two, then three, then four, and they take it because they get value from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Take $8,000 program in the first year, they make an extra $200,000. So they're happy to reinvest 15,000 for a program 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years later, because it's sort of like with house money by now.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's up to us to make sure they grow. They take the next program, $15,000. They've got to grow $100,000, $200,000 a year,
Right.
for them to reinvest a portion of it back in the next program. So we started doing the programs. And then what happened is I saw in the programs, I'm recommending to them the material that to put into that socket.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked with the folks at the university and a fellow named Dr. Ted Malinin, an orthopedic surgeon there, and we had the ideal material. And so rather than is recommending things that were good, okay, but not the best out there, we said, well, we could form a company. So he and I partnered 66%, 33%. We formed a company. He retired from the university as well. And he was senior to me in terms of years and such. He was probably ready to retire anyway. We formed a company. We actually rented space within the university. So our address is still the university address for the company, Osteolife Biomedical. And I started making the bone product. And today it's gross revenue is about $10 million a year.
Well, so in that particular case, what I'm hearing you say the pattern is you have to make sure that what you're doing is good for the client and you're just seeking the best, right?
Yes.
You're seeking the best for the client and the best wasn't easily available or it wasn't whatever. So you just created your own.
We created the best, and what we did is we actually underpriced it. It is not the highest price in the market. It is actually slightly below average pricing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 40th percentile. There's about 30-40% lower than us, 60% higher, but the best product at a value pricing.
Right. So you're recommending this bone preservation procedure and this material that you have to put in there is now something that you're selling and you're selling and you're not embarrassed about selling it because you're saying I've developed the best one and it's cheaper than what you're going to buy somewhere else.
But if you want something else or you're using something else already, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. Okay, absolutely. And then the same thing happened. There's instruments they wanted for the surgery. There's dental implants they wanted. So we developed them. A lot of implants these days are imported from other countries and manufacturing is different. So we said, okay, let's do a made in America to our specifications and our designs. And the same thing with instruments. The instruments to make sinus lifts. Over the years, I'd given away these ideas to other companies to manufacture and sell, and I was happy with that. I just wanted these great instruments out there to do the sinus lifts. As I developed new ideas, we had our company manufacture it. And so is MedEquip, they began manufacturing it. Today it's about $15 million a year is gross annual sales. And so a lot of it became like I say, very organic and is just adding on. It is almost similar to a person who has a practice. They've got an optometry practice or they've got a dental practice. They add on for the optometry practice, they add on the glasses, they add on other ancillary things. In the seminar business, I was adding on ancillary things. The ancillary things did well, so we kept on growing the ancillary things.
Yeah, and I liken this a little bit in the optometry space. I liken this a little bit to a practice that brings in a private label brand. And they say, well, the reason I'm bringing in this brand because it might be better product for my patients. And it's designed to my own specifications and it's designed to the types of patients I'm seeing. And it's probably more profitable for me to be able to do that. So I can deliver better care and I can ensure that I'm doing that. But you can look at that pretty much in any business. And you like to control, it seems to me like you like to not leave any part of the experience, whether it's, your student experience and your, in your seminar business or your patient experience in your practice, you don't like to leave any of that stuff to chance. So you just create it, right?
Yeah. But in today's world, it's not as difficult as it once was. I was never really want to be in the consumer line of products, but I did because a lot of times, folks with mouthwashes, they go, well, it kills, people are worried about balance these days. It kills the bad bacteria, but it kills the good bacteria too. So we launched a line, and we just call it Dr. G brand, and some mouthwash has probiotic in it. So it kills the bad bacteria, but then you reintroduce good bacteria. Is for toothpaste. The thing lies there with the cap on, with the cap off, the tube half squeezed. Doesn't look elegant in anyone's bathroom. So we made a nice, elegant pump. And then a lot of times people glob on too much of the toothpaste, and you see half of it in the sink and half of it here. So it comes out as a foam, so you can't put too much on. Elegant pump in a foam, good tasting. So made minor tweaks to what's out there, and that's part of the line is for the consumer line.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, so we're just making these minor tweaks and just doing it. And today you can, as years ago, you couldn't have these resources. How do I find a company that's going to manufacture this for me? And we Googled, we found 50 companies to manufacture this for us.
That's
And
awesome.
who's going to create the bottle design? Well, I have in-house graphic designers to do it. And I have 3 full-time in-house graphic designers. But now you go on, Fiverr.com and you hire a graphic designer in another country for $5, $10, and they can design the label for you. So
Yeah.
the resources are out there to do these things today.
I love this. And I think you're absolutely right, is that, it just seems to me like this entrepreneurial passion was truly based off of getting the best for your patients and for your students.
Right. It is.
And
That's what drives.
and that's how don't you own a restaurant or a couple or something like that too?
I did. I mean, I not I did. I do. I did invest in restaurants. So I'm 50% owner of 4 different restaurants and 1 bakery. And they got awarded. One of the restaurants is a Michelin star 3 years in a row. One of the
Wow.
restaurants is voted top 10 in America. One is voted top 50 in America. The pastry shop is voted top 8 pastry shops in America. Um,
And
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 so,
you, I think initially, what you got into restaurants because you didn't like the food or something that was coming to your seminars?
it's not that I didn't like it. I just wanted to control that. So, we would do breakfast from Panera, nothing wrong with that. And we would do, lunches from whatever, a variety of different restaurants. But I thought I can control that experience much better if I am an investor in the restaurant. Can make sure it arrives. So now, the breakfast comes from Caracas Bakery, one of the top 8 bakeries in America. Is the lunch comes from Guy, the Michelin star is a restaurant. And I just did a program in Miami this weekend, and rave reviews about the lunch, like, wow. And they're there for the seminar,
Right.
but the rave reviews of the food, it adds hand in hand the experience in regard to the seminar.
I just love how naturally this comes to you to think about every detail of the experience for those that you're serving. And I think we can all take a lot of lessons from this. I think that, and obviously the businesses you created were all designed because you had that mindset in the first place to say, I want what's best for you, my customer, my client, my patient, my student. I want what's best for you. So let me go make sure that happens, and it's okay that you're going to have to pay for it, but because I believe that you deserve the best, and in order for me to get you the best, you're going to have to pay me some money. But and you're absolutely right. And I think that's such a huge component of your success, and kind of why you've become the serial entrepreneur and just a pillar in the dental community.
Thank you.
Well, so I'd love to do. I mean, I feel like we could do part 2 through 5 of this conversation at some point. But I think that you've shared so much wisdom and so much knowledge in this conversation. I'm going to encourage everybody listening to really just provide me with some feedback and let me know what you learned and kind of where you want to take the conversation in the future. I'm grateful that you were able to join us on the show today, Dr. Garg, and thank you so much for all you've shared.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, guys.
If you're enjoying the Power Hour, you might be asking yourself, what can I do today in my practice that's going to make an impact? So over the years, the practice coaches and consultants at the Power Practice have helped thousands of practices improve. And they often start with one thing, and that's a proprietary methodology called the Practice Profitability Audit. For about $2,400, they look at all of your practice numbers and they stack them up against where a practice of your size could and should be. It takes about a week for them to do. And because they're so experienced, they know what your potential looks like. And they're often able to take that $2,400, multiply it several times over, and hand it right back to you in found profits in your practice in months, not years, in months. But you get to keep the much more profitable practice for years afterwards. But here's the best news. I'm going to tell you how you can have the practice profitability audit completely free. See, we're really trying to get people onto the show website, which is, by the way, powerpractice.com. And then you click the Power Hour podcast button. The reason we want you there is because I want the audience participation. I want to hear your feedback, and I want to know how to make the show better for you. So you can interact with us, send us your feedback, offer your suggestions. And for a limited time, when you go there, you can also request a practice profitability audit for free. Right. We're going to cover 100% of the cost, but only for 5 people per month. And 5 people per month is all we really have capacity for, because this is a resource intensive audit, and the power practice coaches are generally busy serving their clients. But for 5 people a month, they've agreed to cover 100% of the cost. So it's totally free to you. So again, take action immediately in your practice. Go to powerpractice.com, click on the Power Hour podcast, interact with us, but also request a practice profitability audit today.